Blank check with Griffin and David. Blank check with Griffin and David. Don't know what to say or to expect. All you need to know is that the name of the show is Blank Check.
Each returning serviceman will get his job back when the war is won. And you girls and women, you'll be going home. Back to being housewives and mothers as you promised to do when you came to work with us. Your podcast will return to normal.
First Tobolowsky quote to lead off the show?
Yep, I think so.
We haven't done a Groundhog Day.
I didn't do that much of an impression. I just felt kind of intimidated.
There is an impression to be done.
Each returning... No,
right.
it's
no,
too
I mean, but there's
squeaky.
something, right?
There's something.
There's a voice.
There's something. I don't have it. Quotes page for this movie is limited.
Oh.
The tagline for this film is terrible. And what I was raking my brain to try to remember was there are a number of quotes I like in the director's cut for this film, but of course none of those are listed on IMDb.
Interesting.
Because
there's a number of quotes from the director's cut you like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? I feel like there were like 10 lines that jumped out to me where I was like, wow, that's a good line. And they were surprisingly...
They were excised.
Excised. Ben, how are these levels doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. Okay. We're in a new studio.
Small studio.
Can you turn my volume a little bit?
Yeah, you turned us all down.
I'm fussing with stuff.
This is
Sorry.
a great
Futzer.
episode.
Yeah, it's off to a good
Futzer.
start.
Well, I mean, classic Blank Check. You do one thing to change our completely ordinary routine, and we're all just like, this is pretty crazy.
We're at a different table. We're in a different room. We got a window again, but it's
You can really hear the ventilation.
You can really hear the ventilation.
But that's ambiance.
It is. I mean, look, maybe this episode will serve as a case study in the importance of podcast editing.
Right.
Much like Swing Shift is kind of an incredible case study in film editing.
Yes.
Because today we're talking about two cuts of the same movie.
We are. It's the first time since I'll Do Anything.
Pretty much. And those were two different episodes.
That's true.
And I feel like other times we've been like, we're just watching the director's cut. Or, we're just watching the theatrical.
Yeah.
And
we'll
pay a little lip service.
Right, we'll have some chat. We'll have a little chat about, different versions.
Man's got different versions. Cameron's got different versions.
But there are very few movies where there's like basically a different movie that exists.
The differences are this fundamental.
Yes.
Because, man rearranges stuff, adds stuff, subtracts stuff, but it doesn't feel as wholly...
No, it's twiddling, usually.
Right.
I mean, with Black Hat, that's the closest, right?
Sure.
Black Hat's the closest where he's like, I made a major... I didn't it's not like there's like 30 minutes on the cutting room floor, but I made a major sort of story change.
Right.
But it's still... He's really just rearranging the pieces. That's all.
This is an example of a movie that was finished.
Yes.
Then 30 new minutes were shot.
Yes.
Then about 30 minutes of the original film were cut.
Right, because the cuts are very similar length. And they're both about 100 minutes.
The scenes that exist in both versions of the film are also cut differently.
Yes.
That's a huge difference.
Yes. Not all, but there's a lot that are noticeably cut differently.
Right. Because something like Black Cat, it's like, big shift here. And things like he'll be like, I changed a couple little things.
Right.
Or like the Aliens and Terminator 2 director's cuts, it's like those special editions are like, I added scenes that I think are
those
important.
are more right. It's like character, padding, things like that. Yeah,
but here's a fundamental difference is that in the director's cut, you're like, man, this is a film of incredible fluid Steadicam shots, like long Steadicam shots.
Right.
And in the theatrical cut, no shot lasts longer than like 15 seconds.
Choppy. It's one of the, there's no character to it.
Even in the same scenes, they just cut up those Steadicam shots.
I believe the score is also different.
Everything's different, but we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, okay.
Because you know what this is?
Wait, what is it?
It's Blank Check with Griffin and Dave.
Yes.
I do feel totally thrown off, don't you?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to harp on a thing, but
it's fine.
is.
Listen to our following episode, which is the first we recorded in a new studio last time. Oh,
sure.
And we're also totally confused.
It's weird.
Yeah, our rhythms are odd. It's fine. We'll be fine. Hello.
Hi. I'm Griffin.
I'm David.
With us as always is producer Ben.
Sitting between us.
Between the boys.
Producer Solomon. He's got he's the
Producer Solomon.
Because it's like there's a divide, he's sort of the king on the throne in between us. I don't know.
I like to say Ben Sandwich.
Yeah, sure. It's a
I
Ben
like
sandwich.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry guys, we're in a smaller room.
Oh, it's fine. Turn on my mic a little
It's
bit.
not your fault.
My mic. I mean your headphones, not my mic. Whatever it is. There we go.
All right, you got the juice
In case
boy.
your mic up as well.
Yeah. Turn it all up.
Turn it up.
Okay,
there we
there
go. Okay,
we go.
I feel like that
Okay.
sounds a little more.
Guys, this is a careful process, okay?
It's tricky because this is a podcast about filmographies. It's about directors who have massive success early on in their career and give a series of blank checks to make whatever crazy passion products they want. And sometimes those checks clear, and sometimes they swing, baby.
Sure. Sometimes they shift.
Sometimes they definitely shift, and this is an example of like a shift. He should have been cashing a check after Melvin and Howard.
Sure.
A small check.
Well, isn't this the small check? Or is this, do you
But
think
then
this
it
is
was
more
taken. They gave him a check.
Well, they took him away. Right.
And then they like repoed all his belongings that
They
he bought
did.
with the check.
And then he just wrote himself another check the same year, basically.
So I did a lot of reading last night and this morning.
Yep.
And a thing, I was reading an interview.
The Guardian interview, is that the one you read?
I don't know if it was that one, but it
Okay.
seemed like it was transcribed from a print interview.
Yeah.
Where, so the transcription was not perfect.
Okay.
But it seemed to imply that he was shooting Stop Making Sense the same time that he was shooting the reshoots on this.
I don't know about that. No.
That's why I was confused.
No. It's the interview you read, the one with the Elaine Mays story.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's the one I read. I think it's the only time he's ever really talked about it. I think usually he'd be like, that movie was taken away from me and I just hate talking. Usually he just sort of shuts it down.
But he tells the story in that about the shoot going long, him feeling like he wasn't going to wrap in time to make it to the show, and Ed Harris faked a headache so that they would wrap early.
I remember that story. Right. You're right.
And it seemed like he was saying that
I guess they came really close, but he says later, I moved back to New York and made Stop Making Sense.
That's what's weird
So
about it.
I think it was more just
Okay.
probably like they were close together.
Sure.
As we know, because this film comes out in 1984. Stop Making Sense comes out in 1984.
Yes.
So like, yeah. I mean, this was supposed to come out the year prior.
Correct.
It was supposed to be a big holiday awardsy movie. And then it got like pushed to May and came out and didn't make much money and, kind of got dumped.
And then a year later in June, I came out.
That is true.
That's the true thing. Birthday Benny.
And only one cut there of the umbilical cord.
Hey now.
Well, what about that little,
Well, I don't want to get it, please. I don't
Right,
want to
that's
get into
fair.
I don't want to
Okay.
get into this.
Oh yeah, we shouldn't.
We should not get into this.
Let's pause that combo.
That's a whole other
All right,
complicated
that can be
conversation.
that can be a Patreon episode next
Put
year.
it
I
behind
guess.
the paywall.
Right. Okay, fine.
On a scale from 1 to 10, I just want to do a quick survey of the room. How insane do you feel right now? Because I feel like a 10.
You are clearly at a 10. I'm at a 6. I
Ben?
would say.
I actually got adjusted.
Okay.
Yeah, Ben seems to be. It's like started at 9, but he's sort of like decelerating.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
working on it.
It's okay.
So, Melvin Howard comes out.
1980.
Oh, I should say, this is based on the films of Jonathan Demme.
Yeah,
it's
that's
called
a-
Stop Making Podcasts.
That's right, and we really should.
We really should.
But no better evidence than today.
It's almost like the universe is trying to tell us to stop making podcasts.
Absolutely not. We're going to make them forever.
Absolutely?
Absolutely not. Napster-lutely not. Maybe on Napster you could have gotten the director's cut back in the day, right?
But think about this as like a reality show.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes.
Like we're showing all the behind the scenes, right? With the level checks like that came earlier in the
Yes.
episode.
Yes.
But it's all out there, We're not leaving it on the cutting room floor.
It's like Survivor, where every season they're like, but there's a twist this season. You have to do the thing upside down. The boys and the girls are on different teams,
Yeah.
Like this is the episode where they throw a curveball at us and we completely crumble.
Right, exactly.
We show that we
We're not up to the task and we should
at
not
all-
be on the island.
No,
right? Yep.
absolutely not. Kick us off.
Yep. Okay, so
Tribe
1980,
spoken.
Melvin Howard. Melvin and Howard comes out.
A modest box office performer,
Correct.
but an Oscar winner in
Yes.
2 major categories.
Yes.
And it kind of announces the emergence of a new major voice in American cinema.
Yeah, sure. Right. Yeah.
Goldie Hawn has a deal at Warner Brothers. She is at this point one of Hollywood's most beloved and reliable stars.
Has been a huge movie star for 15 years.
Has won an Oscar 15 years earlier.
She won an Oscar, 13 years earlier. Cactus Flower, I think, is 69. Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
And has then just kind of an incredible run. We are disoriented by everything going on around us. She has an incredible run.
Yeah.
And by the early 80s, she has kind of honed in on what a Goldie Hawn movie is.
Sure.
Right? Private Benjamin becomes like the platonic ideal of a Goldie Hawn comedy.
Yeah, that's so I'm looking at her run in the late 70s.
That's 1980 on the dot?
That's 80, yeah. So you've got like Foul Play with Chevy Chase, which was a pretty big hit.
She does Seems Like Old Times with Chevy Chase, so it's like, okay,
That's
they
right.
have a good thing going.
As you say, you've got Private Benjamin in 80, which is a huge hit.
Huge hit. She gets a Best Actress nomination.
You got Best Friends, the Burt Reynolds movie, I think is a couple years before Swing Shift. That's 82. Yes.
Which is directed by Norman Jewison, but based on Robert Benton's relationship with Jane Curtin's sister, who was a writer for SNL.
You just pulled that out of a hat. That's pretty impressive.
I was doing a Goldie deep dive
sure.
last night.
And she, as you say, she's an Oscar winner. With Private Benjamin, you have, I feel like, I don't know, there's like a whole other level of legitimacy with that movie. Like that was one of the big performers of the year. She got lead actress nomination.
That's what I was gonna, and it gets, Eileen Brennan gets Best Supporting Actress, right?
Nomination.
Yes, and it gets a screenplay nomination.
Yeah.
So
Nancy Meyers' only screenplay nomination.
Of course. But that rare phenomenon in which
sixth biggest film of that year. Yeah.
Crazy. That rare phenomenon in which a mainstream studio comedy breaks into the Oscars feels like its own insane level of success, like the Bridesmaids thing, where it's like, you're not just a big hit. We're saying you're a legitimate movie, because comedies so rarely do well.
Yeah, usually they ignore, especially back then.
Even the more successful a comedy is, the more it seems to get ignored. You know, it's then viewed as like populist, whatever. So the fact that that movie makes that big of an impact, I think makes Goldie Hawn kind of unstoppable at this point in time.
Sure, 100%. Yes, as you say, has to deal with Warner Brothers, big star. This is all context for the fact that she essentially was the sort of number one person in the movie.
And sabotages it. Her producing partner, right around Swing Shift, I don't know if she's working with her at the time of Private Benjamin, or happens right after that, is this woman whose name I'm forgetting now, Anthea Jones, perhaps?
Okay.
I will pull up the name in a second, but I don't want to get my phone because I'm worried about changing my position in relation to the microphone because everything we're doing right now is very tenuous.
Anthea Silbert.
Thank you.
Yes.
She was a costume designer.
She was.
Did Chinatown.
She did.
Got an Oscar nomination for that.
That's right.
Another film she got an Oscar nomination for that I'm forgetting. Thank you. You're really going to have to work that computer hard.
I always work the computer. Famous costume designer who also produced half a dozen Goldie Hawn movies, essentially.
Right. She becomes
like
her
Overboard
partner.
and Wildcats. And
I'm jumping all around here, but I think there is, I have witnessed this a lot. There are two things that can fuck up a movie star and by proxy, the films a movie star is making, their vehicles.
Okay.
One is if they team up with someone whose job was ostensibly to make them look good.
Okay.
In a capacity outside of that job.
What are you thinking of?
I mean, the John Peters, Barbara Streisand thing is a perfect example.
Yes.
Where then they suddenly have...
He's her stylist, and
You have a right-hand person whose job is just to say, like, they're making you look bad.
Right. You should be winning this movie, essentially.
Right. In both a visual sense and in sort of a star power sense.
Yes.
And in the same way, when I say making them look good, it can be a makeup artist and it can be a personal assistant, right? But people whose jobs were to just help a movie star be the best movie star they could be, then suddenly becoming producers on a film, usually spells trouble.
Right.
The other thing that usually fucks up a movie is when the two leads fall in love.
Well, that's, This is a really weird scenario.
Everything about the scenario.
Okay, like this is a very unusual situation. It's not that expensive a movie.
No,
it's not being made.
It goes way over budget.
Well, because they reshot it.
Of course, but I'm just saying that always puts a burden on a film.
Sure, but it's an unusual movie. It's like Goldie Hawn is the unambiguous powerhouse. Mm-hmm. Jonathan Demme is still a young director who basically has made like one legitimate movie, after coming up with Corman.
Yeah.
She is with Kurt Russell, who is still, he's already a big deal.
He is, because he had done the Elvis miniseries.
Right. Like all that stuff's come out. His John Carpenter stuff, he's like deep in that.
Sure.
I'm just double checking. Yeah, The Thing is a couple years earlier.
But that is,
I guess, Big Trouble in Little China is later. Sure. But, Escape from New York has already come, right? He's...
But to Kurt Russell context, very quickly, he is a Disney star.
Well, right. I mean, I was going to argue like, oh, this is like him coming out of his Disney boyish, but no, he's already come out of that.
No, I'd argue it's like, this is a different shift for him, which is he's a Disney star in the period of the live action Disney films that now are being rediscovered thanks to the Disney Plus Twitter thread, which I think won the Pulitzer Prize for literature this year.
It was good. I liked it.
It's a good thread. But all those sorts of movies that were modest performers at the time that no one took seriously. And he was
a boyish, handsome.
He was the teenage Dean Jones. He was the squeaky clean, bright smile, blue-eyed sort of dude. And then he does the Elvis miniseries that Carpenter directs, which kind of redefines his career. Yeah. And then Carpenter goes, "You're my muse," and makes him the sort of winking, self-knowing action hero for his sort of sly satire.
Puts him in a ton of stuff, right?
Right. But this is kind of the John Carpenter films are such a hard swing in the other direction from the Disney.
Right.
That this is him moving him towards
like
the middle
again. Right.
You're like, can he be like a charming?
But he's not in this movie. He's supposed to be a jerk.
Totally.
But anyway, yes. So
I'm just laying out all the problems.
I know.
That's another problem is that then they fall in love and they went, why doesn't this movie reflect the chemistry we have in real life? And why isn't Kurt as charming as I find him to be?
I don't think it was just that, though. I also think it was the studio being like, holy shit, we've got a genuine publicity situation where two movie stars have fallen in love, two beautiful movie stars who are going to make a child who's going to really get David revved up one day.
He gets you revved up?
Oh, I love Wyatt Russell.
He rules.
It's also just one of those classic, like, children where you're like, we squished these two handsome people together and look, a third handsome person who looks like both of them.
He's such a funny version, like combination of the two
Pokemon,
of them. Because it's that weird thing where, like, Kurt Russell is notoriously kind of...
what are you saying? What is this?
Kurt Russell was notoriously this kind of square guy.
Oh, sure. Okay.
With somewhat square politics, who is borderline jingoistic in his love of America.
Yeah, he does love America.
And Goldie Hawn becomes famous
like
for being literally the flower child.
Yeah.
And they're such a weird couple in that sense, aside from them both being incredibly, like, preternaturally charismatic and beautiful.
He's talked about it, right? Like, he's been like, oh, she wanted nothing to do with me. Like, we'd known each other because we'd worked
They were in a Disney film together when they were one of the 60s ones.
And she was just like, he has some cute sort of meet cutie story about how, like, at the beginning of the movie, she was like not interested, and by the end, they were in love. Right? Like,
they're
it was
an odd couple like that.
Right?
And then Wyatt Russell is the perfect combination of the two of them. He's like a hippie jock.
It's true. Oh God, him and everybody wants some.
Oh, he's so good, man.
Yes, he is. Anyway,
David was like holding on to his eyebrows like he was trying to rip them off his head. It looked like his Twitter photo. But yes, I'm just trying to set up all the different elements that come into play. Right.
So I think that was really working against Demme. Obviously, as you say, Goldie is working against him. And so
now there's a really good Sight and Sound piece.
Yeah.
I think that was published after Demme died called Swing Shift, The Unmaking of a Masterpiece, which this guy has seemingly watched both cuts 40 times.
Yes, but I will say, the first Sight and Sound piece is from a long time ago because Demme references it.
Oh, really? You're right. It was just...
I think
there's a hyperlink at the top. It was republished because of that.
Yeah. But yes, there's a very detailed Sight and Sound piece that's essentially like really going through all the differences, but is also just like Swing Shift is a not very good movie, and Swing Shift, the Demme cut, is like one of the great American films of its decade.
That's his argument. He's
right. Like, he's not just like, this is a curio.
No.
He's basically like a masterpiece was lost. And, and it was this like heartbreaking thing.
Who wrote that article? Just because I want to give them credit, because I'm going to be leapfrogging a lot of the stuff that they said, along with Feinberg, the Guardian article. And then there's also a BFI entry on the film that has a weird amount of detail. But here's the stuff I pieced together from all three. Okay. Writer of this film, the original writer on the film.
Sure. Nancy Dowd.
Who wrote the original draft of Coming Home, which was then rewritten. She's somewhat disowned. She thought
also
they
wrote
made it very sentimental. She also wrote Slapshot. She had a bunch of uncredited.
Yeah, she's a writer.
She had a bunch of story credits.
Worked on SNL one year.
Big deal in the 70s, right? She writes Swing Shift as an original screenplay, I think somewhat as a corrective to what she felt, how they had sentimentalized Coming Home.
Right. People point out that it has a very similar narrative spine to Coming Home.
Now, originally, by all accounts, her script was about Lucky and the Christine Lottie character, who had a different name at the time.
Sure.
And the Goldie Hawn character was very much a supporting character. It was not a love triangle as much as it was a film about the two of them. It kicks around for years. It almost gets made at some point in the late 70s with a combination of people I'm forgetting. And then in the early 80s, Goldie Hawn finds it. And she likes it. And she says, this is what I'd like to do. And she reaches out to Demme because she liked Melvin and Howard.
Yeah, and he just won an actress an Oscar. And
yes.
Yeah, he's a young, exciting director.
They hire Ron Nygaard. Is that his name?
Yes.
Who later goes...
Wait, you mean Ron Neiswaner.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
Who later goes on to write Philadelphia for Demme, to rewrite the script. Because the more she worked on it with Demme, she realized she didn't want to play the Christine Lottie part because it kind of conflicted with her image. Goldie Hawn's thing was, being the cutesy ball of light in the world. And the entire crux of Christine Lottie's character is her fighting to retain agency in a world that views her as a tramp.
Uh-huh.
And that was a little too hard-edged and a little too morally dubious for Goldie Hawn.
Sure.
So they rewrite the script and make this supporting character now the lead of the film. And it becomes more Coming Home-ish then. Weird.
Yeah, and also Neiswaner is the script. That's what everyone says.
Everyone says that when...
Demme was shooting off of that script.
That was his draft. The weird thing is that the film ends up with one solo screenwriting credit, which is a person who doesn't exist.
Right. Which is weird.
It's very weird.
It's a pseudonym. It's like an Alan Smithy, but It's not that.
They shoot this film.
Yep.
They test it. I think audiences are a little confused. Mostly probably because they're like, where's the Goldie Hawn comedy here?
Right.
Where's the fish out of water? Where's the she changes people with her effervescence?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Warner Brothers freaks out. And Goldie Hawn of all freaks out. And they're looking at the Kurt Russell of it all, and they're going, why isn't this having more of like Hepburn and Tracy energy?
Right.
So they bring in a bunch of screenwriters to try to rewrite the movie to make it more of like an oil and vinegar, like screwball rom-com. And one of the first people they bring in is Elaine May.
Can I read this? I've got
Please.
it up. Okay. So this is Jonathan Demme talking about how this movie was essentially, I don't even know if they had a test screening.
I read that there was a test screen, but everyone should read this Guardian interview, which is so good if you can find it.
Yeah. But, because like essentially the executives definitely tested the movie and they were like, no, thank you. Like, right. They were sort of all the problems you're talking about. Like where this is Goldie Hawn should be, the lovable ditz that's like, like going to be an Overboard in a couple of years. Like that's, the Goldie Hawn everyone's asking for.
And Overboard is what I think they wanted out of this, which is like Kurt's a man and Goldie's a woman and God, they can't get along until they do.
Right. So first he says that some other high-priced Hollywood writer who he won't mention comes in and writes some scenes.
Robert Towne apparently was.
I believe that's who he's
brought
referring
in.
to. Right?
Yeah.
But then he also says that was the second person. The first person they went to was Elaine May.
Obvious first choice at this time.
Right. She'll write you screwball comedy, of course. Elaine May comes in to see the movie. She has lunch with Goldie and Goldie's partner, whoever.
I was trying
that totally threw me off.
I was trying to not interrupt. Ben, can you turn my volume up a little?
Just say it because it just makes me think that something's wrong.
Okay.
So Elaine May comes in. She watches the movie in the original form. Just edit it out. Come on, guys. It's okay, right?
Of course it's okay. It's just this is such a fucking shitty situation.
It's fine. Come on.
If anything, we'll cut in a testimonial.
Yeah.
Everyone back to 0, please. All right, thank you. Elaine comes in. She watches the movie. She meets with Goldie, walks in, I think sees Jonathan and says, "Are you Jonathan? What a wonderful movie. This is fabulous. Are you guys out of your mind?" Mm-hmm. So she sees the movie and is basically like, hey, this is a great movie. Like, you don't need me. Uh-huh. You already have a product right here.
Done. Release it. And
they start talking to her like they want more of a Tracy and Hepburn kind of thing is what Demi's saying, mm-hmm. right? Which is what you're talking about. And she says, well, that sounds great for some movie.
Right.
But they go completely against the ecology of this movie that now exists, and you'll never pull it off. And Demi remarks like, I love that phrase, the ecology of a movie.
But it's so spot on because you watch the two cuts and so much of it is like, I've been thinking a lot about when Reese was on the show, on our Spirited Away episode. Yep. And he said that he feels like most movies, especially most good movies, are either puzzles or dreams, right?
It's resonated. It's a great thought.
Yes. And watching this, I had this thought that most great directors, or at least interesting directors, are either anthropologists or engineers. I'm kind of on something here, right?
Keep going.
Because there's like, the Fincher, Coen brothers, Hitchcock, precision.
They're making a machine for you.
I'm going to have everything perfectly worked out, and I hire people who are professionals, and they know how to exactly execute what I want to do.
And they can see a shot in their head.
I see it in my head.
That magic. Yeah.
Right, and you just have to execute that. And they'll work with people, but they'll work with people to execute the very specific thing they had in their mind. And there are people like Demi who just kind of, and Ang Lee is another example of this.
Yep.
Who want to like sit down and feel the room and let actors define their roles and bring in collaborators who can bring him ideas that he never even would have had on his own and just sit and wait and study and experiment and wait for the results to come in, And that's like...
I think that's why this was so traumatic for him.
Yes.
Because it really seems like it was a very traumatic experience for him because... It's one thing. So many of these situations. What was some director's cut recently? I feel like this was just coming up.
The Snyder Cut?
I mean, there's that.
Sure.
That's not even the worst example where it's like...
The Midsummer director's cut.
No,
there are
that's
like 1,000 examples.
Talk about the Snowman? Talk about that Snowman?
Snowman. No, but the Justice League is a good example.
Sure.
Midsummer, the director's cut is like basically like...
Here's the longer version.
He's just like, right, I have more and I like it. And I understand that movies have to be a certain length. Yeah. So like, but if you're interested. That's more the sort of like, look, if you're more the Man or Cameron, like...
Cotton Club, is that the one you were thinking
Well,
of?
that's an interesting one.
That's an interesting one.
That's more along the lines of this. But no, the Justice League thing is more like, that's a great example of like, the movie is probably a mess no matter what, right?
Sure.
That's a film where there was a sort of unsalvageable energy. And in trying to salvage it, the studio's probably just making it more unsalvageable, right? Because it's, you've just got this mess on your hands.
Right.
This is a thing where he made a movie. It was good.
Yes.
People watched it and were like, I don't like this movie. It's bad. And he was like, I think it's good. And they were like, no, rip the guts out.
Right.
Yeah.
The I'll Do Anything example is you watch the theatrical cut of I'll Do Anything.
That's another one. That's a perfect, right. It's where it's like, those are two messes.
Right. But you watch the theatrical cut and you go, the director's cut must make sense of this.
Yeah, exactly. No,
it's like it's actually a salvage job.
It's actually worse.
Right.
That's what's so crazy.
Right. That's what's so bizarre about this. And let's say here, I as a thought experiment had us watch these in different orders.
That's right. This was Griffin's idea. It was a fun idea.
Thank you. So I watched the director's cut first and then watched the Goldie Hawn cut. And you did the opposite.
That's right.
The director's cut has never been commercially released.
No.
There is like an open matte VHS quality transfer that has been digitized and certainly has diminished. It is a little hard to make out and hear.
Oh, for 100%. No, it's not in good shape.
It's in bad shape.
It's watchable.
It is watchable.
I would say maybe more watchable than whatever the fucking I'll Do Anything cut I watched was. But, similar lines.
Yeah, similar lines.
Of course, I'll Do Anything also was a musical, so it really would have benefited from you being able to hear things clearly and all that.
Oh, you want to hear Albert Brooks belting it out in perfect 5.1 Dolby Digital surround sound.
Oh, boy. But still, nonetheless, there is a cut. It is this, it's this sort of VHS thing.
Right.
And you watch that.
Yes.
It's been going around for years.
Demme seemed to think, when he rarely spoke of this film, that it would be impossible.
That it's all gone. Yeah.
Now, there are many films in our lifetime that were thought to be all gone in the same kind of way. The thought is that Warner Brothers literally threw out that footage.
Yes.
That's insane.
It's insane.
Yeah, they trashed his right. Yeah, but the tapes do exist. I mean, he's,
the tapes exist off of.
He's thinking in a more pre-digital sense. Like you can put something online, it'll last forever.
Yes,
I mean not forever. But
I pray that someday someone fucking finds this.
Oh sure, like if you could actually restore the movie
because it's not like it only ever existed on like an Avid.
His claim is no, for sure, right? So it would have to be some old executive is like, oh, actually, I did, right? It would have to be one of those weird, like, actually, I kept it.
But that Guardian interview's from like 2002.
I don't know.
It's early. It's him either promoting, I think, Truth About Charlie or Manchurian Candidate.
Beloved. So it's from a long time
Jesus
ago.
Christ, it's 98. Yeah. So, I mean, shortly after that, not shortly after that, but in the 6 or 7 years after that, Warner Brothers does a kick of doing a lot of restorations where they take like the big red one and they restore the remove scenes from The Exorcist. Yeah. Like they start doing a lot
That's true.
And people kept on thinking like, is Swing Shift going to be next in the mix? But an example that like gives me hope is that for years and years, everyone thought the original cut of Little Shop of Horrors was dead. To a degree that the first DVD was released with the black and white VHS quality version of the ending.
Right.
And David Geffen had them pull the DVD from the shelves because he said, I don't want people seeing it in this quality. I won't release it until it exists in perfect quality. And like 5 years ago, they found it.
So maybe someday they'll find it.
Maybe someday they'll find it. David.
How you doing?
You sound relieved.
I do.
I wonder why. It's like you were expecting something was going to happen. You were bracing yourself.
Feeling great.
Wow, you're like leaning back. You're running your hands through your hair. Well, I'm feeling bad.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's sort of the fall. Getting close to winter. It's cold out. It's dark. Holiday season.
And no one has RSVP'd to my digital Thanksgiving.
Digital Thanksgiving. Explain.
Well, it's like Thanksgiving's so stressful. Sure. You got to see family, all these conversations you don't want to have. Okay. Tricky subjects get touched on,
Sure.
You got to make food or eat food.
Right, yeah.
So I want to just do a digital Thanksgiving where I can have the conversations I want to have with the people I want to have.
At your leisure.
At my leisure,
on your
not in
timeline.
person. Real productive, healthy conversations that help my mental outlook.
Well, I think that your thinking is good.
Okay, thank you.
Your approach in terms of like framing it around Thanksgiving might be what's tripping you up.
Interesting.
What I think is you should check out our old friends at Talkspace.
Oh, I forgot about our old friends at Talkspace.
It's online therapy that gives you a convenient and affordable way to improve your mental health.
Oh, and they're not just available on Thanksgiving. You could have a good, healthy conversation with them anytime.
That's true. I would imagine Thanksgiving one of the worst days for them, but almost every other day is fine. What I
need isn't digital Thanksgiving. It's just regular therapy.
Yes. Talkspace is going to pair you with one of 5,000 licensed therapists, more than 5,000. Based on your needs and preferences. Wow. You can connect with your therapist via text, audio, picture, video messages.
Emoji?
The same day you match. Sure. Emoji counts as text these days. It's a language.
So that's part of my digital Thanksgiving plan was just sending emojis of the different courses.
It's just a turkey, a potato.
Yeah.
Things like that.
One potato, please.
Your therapist is going to message you daily, 5 days a week, no office trips or appointments to schedule. And it's really affordable. It gives you a month of anytime access for the price of like one in-person therapy session.
Interesting. And some of their expertise that I've heard they cover things like depression, big this time of year, anxiety, huge this time of year, food eating.
Food/eating, sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Around the holidays gets tricky.
Yep. It's clinically proven. In one academic study, Talkspace users reported a 50% drop in anxiety after 3 months. 80% of participants in another study said Talkspace was as effective or more effective than in-person therapy.
I mean, and compare that to most family Thanksgiving, you're talking like a 200% increase in anxiety.
At least, at the very least. Talkspace, and it's very secure. It encrypts and protects your information using bank-level security technology. There's confidential support from a dedicated therapist from the privacy of your device, anywhere, anytime.
Wow.
So we all need help navigating life's ups and downs. Talkspace offers the support you need at an affordable price. My listeners, our listeners,
thank you.
$100 off their first month by using code CHECK at Talkspace.com. Match with a therapist with a fraction of the price. Traditional therapy at Talkspace.com, or download the app. Just use the code CHECK to get $100 off your first month. That's Talkspace.com, promo code CHECK.
And just on your own time, whenever's convenient for you, if you could please
respond.
Yeah,
I'm going to get around to that.
As I was trying to subtly indicate that I have, in fact, invited you and you have not responded to Digital Thanksgiving yet.
But as it is right now, you can really only watch like a bootleg of the director's cut. And nonetheless, so you watched that first.
I watched that first. So I was watching a process of subtraction. I was watching the proper film and seeing what got removed, and you were watching the addition of the elements that make the film coherent.
Rented the damn thing on iTunes, queued it up, watched it with my partner. We watched it together. We were like,
humble brag.
It's back, baby. And we were just, I think my experience with the movie, let me speak about it. I'm going to speak on this.
Speak on this, my friend.
So I watched this movie. I am very fascinated by that period in American life. It is so crazy to think about, basically, that like most American men from the age of like 20 to 35 vanished from the country. It is such a bizarre thing to think about. I was recently rewatching A League of Their Own, which is like a light and wonderful movie, but it's also about the same thing where it's like, imagine just like everyone is old, like you go to like the dance hall and it's a bunch of retired, right? Like that weird sort of surreal Lynchian kind of like.
It's like the premise of Y the Last Man.
And yeah, exactly. And then so beyond that, obviously, you have all these like very real things that women had to deal with, especially, women who are suddenly like in this household, they had to run all by themselves and they had to earn money and all this shit. So this is I love this period. I love this concept.
Yes.
And so the first 45 minutes of the movie we're watching, I'm like, this is good. This is a good movie. Like I love seeing this, and like, Christine Lottie is fucking killing it. And Goldie, I am kind of like, what? She doesn't have a handle on this. Like, because she's not playing sort of classic Goldie character, right? She seems a little lost. She's not great with the melancholy stuff. She's trying to be funny, but like there's not really a lot of funny stuff.
That's what you're thinking watching the theatrical.
The theatrical. Yeah. That Kurt shows up and I'm like, well, I want to fuck this guy.
Of course,
I keep yelling about how I want to fuck him.
His bone structure's insane.
It is. And then I would say like halfway through the movie, we really both started every 10 minutes like looking at each other and being like, what is this about? Wait, where's this going?
Unravels.
And there's the pivotal thing that Ed Harris comes home. We'll talk about it. But, there's a scene where Ed Harris comes off. He's on shore leave or whatever. He just sees them together, the three of them. And then we sort of cut ahead and like he just knows, right? Like, there's these additional scenes and he just kind of figures it out.
Yeah.
And Joanna was like, so he just figured it out? And I was like, yeah, I guess he just figured it out, right? He just kind of got the vibe. But both of us are kind of like a little unfulfilled by that.
The whole movie feels like that. Where you're like, I guess, okay. I don't know. That just happens.
There's a lot of mental leaps that you can make because it's a movie. And in the last half of the movie, that's what's happening. Like there's this scene where where Holly Hunter is a new guy. And I'm like, wait, when did she get the new guy?
Because previously her only big scene was
her crying when she learns her husband has died. And so you're just like,
I think that was the guy who delivered the news, was her new boyfriend.
Like all this, the director's cut has a lot of scenes that sort of sprinkle in more context. And it's just a movie that makes more sense. It was assembled that way.
Yeah.
And so we watch it. By the end, I'm just like, when the fuck is this thing over? And it's not a long movie.
Yeah.
And I really got frustrated.
Pretty much the same.
They're 100
length.
minutes. They're 100 minutes each.
Right.
I think the director's cut's 101. Like it's literally like that. And we turned it off. And we were just like, I don't know. We were both like a little frustrated. And that obviously, I'm saying to her like, there's actually this director's cut. She doesn't give a shit. But like,
she announces she's leaving you. No, but it is. I can imagine if you're watching it in that order, you're like, do I just have to watch this movie again with more scenes added to it?
So I queue it up.
Is it just going to be an expanded version?
So I queue up the director's cut.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the next day, I did give myself a break.
I watched them back to back like a lunatic.
That is lunatic.
Yeah.
That's lunatic level. But that's classic you.
I'm a lunatic.
And the first half of the director's cut is so similar to the actual movie, not like
on its face
broadly, that I was almost like this has been overhyped for me.
Sure.
Like, because I'm noticing little editing changes and stuff, but I'm still like, get out of here, masterpiece.
Yeah.
Or whatever, like, get out of here, Sight and Sound guy who's like, you won't believe it. It's one of the great American movies. And then suddenly everything changes and starts to make sense.
Right.
And I recommend you should go back and watch them both again the other way.
I'm thinking about it, honestly. I'm so fascinated by these two films.
And I could not believe how good the movie was.
Yeah.
On rewatching it in this director's cut that basically just like, there's all kinds of changes that we can try and talk about. But it just it feels like a Jonathan Demme movie, I guess is the best way to describe it. It feels empathetic. It feels like a slice of life about a bunch of people. It feels like it's more about this workplace and this relationship between Hazel and Kay, Kurt Russell is very much a supporting character, like all the men in the movie. All the men in the movie are very much supporting characters who are sort of in and out. They're disruptive. They're emotional, but they're not like, we don't care about them in the same way.
Yeah.
And I turned it and I was like, I can't believe it. I could not believe it. I texted you immediately. Yeah. Like stunned.
So the other sort of legend about the recut is that Goldie Hawn felt insecure.
This is a legend. Unconfirmed legend.
Unconfirmed legend. But worth acknowledging that this had always been a whisper. Because even at the time of this film's making, it was being written up a lot as this year-long battle between Goldie Hawn and this up-and-coming director. That she apparently felt that Christine Lottie was outshining her in the movie.
Yeah.
Which Christine Lottie is in that position where it's just like, here's an actor who has the goods and is finally being given their first big role, and they're just ready for it. It's one of those like lightning in a bottle things where it's like, this is just someone who is right there, is so prepared for this moment and shows up and makes the most of it. It is not an incredibly showy performance.
It's an incredible performance.
But it's an incredibly good performance, right? I think
it's really incredible. And it is one of those classic, right? You're just like, who is this and how do I get more of them? Like, right,
totally
that emerging thing.
It's like Carey Mulligan in An Education where it's just like, okay, you're a new person now. Great. You're here. Good. Welcome.
So tall.
Keep making movies. So tall. There's that incredible shot in the director's cut, I think, where her, Lottie, Goldie Hawn, and Holly Hunter are all standing together. And Lottie is like 5'11".
Yes.
And Goldie Hawn is like...
Goldie's like 5'6". She's like regular sort of.
Right. Yeah. And Holly Hunter is like 4'2".
Yeah, right.
And it is like small, medium, large.
At one point, someone tried to rivet Holly Hunter into a plane.
They did.
Because they just thought she was a little rivet.
They put her on a rivet gun. Yeah. Now that ain't a push pin.
And she fit.
That's Holly Hunter. What was I going to say? The Lottie thing, though, is fascinating because Lottie gets a Best Supporting Actress nomination for this movie.
Anyway. Even though this movie came out in May, was a flop, and is surrounded by death, she's still so good that she gets an Oscar nomination.
And in a weird way, if one of the goals had been to minimize Christine Lottie by centering Goldie Hawn more, the movie becomes so jumbled that Christine Lottie comes out of the Warner Brothers cut as one of the only coherent elements.
Yes, it's true.
So she rises to the top.
But it's one reason I don't actually buy that it was like sort of an actor war thing. I think it's more just... Lottie is going to suffer because Goldie is like, this should be a rom-com. This should be a love triangle. This should be a, me, Kurt, and then like Ed Harris or whoever, the third spoke. Like, we got to put in more Kurt. We got to put in more Kurt.
Sure.
Yeah. And then so, the Hazel relationship just kind of diminishes. And then there are moments in the movie, in the Goldie cut, where like Lottie and Goldie's relationship is really important, and you're like, do they even care about each other? Like, I don't get this. Like,
the ecology comment is fascinating because there are things watching these two cuts back to back that feel like the Kuleshov effect, where you're watching the exact same scene.
You're talking about the Kaminsky method. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. It feels like the Kaminsky method, America's favorite comedy series.
Right.
The Kuleshov effect. You know what I'm talking about.
No.
You don't know about you
No,
know
I
you're
don't
gonna
know.
know when I explain what this is. But it was that test done by like the Russians. But like the study in sort of the art of montage.
No, I know. Right, yeah. Okay.
Where they filmed a close-up of like the most famous actress of the time in Russia and just said, with a blank expression, we're just going to film you for like 2 minutes.
It's an actor, I believe.
I believe it's a lady. Am I wrong about this?
I think you're wrong.
Okay.
Isn't it a man?
I think it's a lady.
It's a man. This man.
Well, I'm not wearing my glasses and the computer's on the other side of the screen. Excuse me while I put my spectacles on. Okay, it is. I'm sorry. I'll eat a turd. The point is, it's a man sitting with a totally blank neutral expression, and then they keep on cutting to other things within his sight line. A little girl in a casket, a bowl of soup. The third one here is a pretty lady on a fainting couch. And the idea is that if you cut between these things, the audience projects onto that face how they think he would respond to those things. The sadness of a child being dead, the hunger in a bowl of soup, the lust in looking at a woman, right?
It's a good movie.
But he's doing that. This movie slaps.
Yes.
And there's this weird thing where, like, there are scenes in this that I watch in the director's cut and I go, oh, this is an incredible performance from Goldie Hawn in this scene. And then the exact same scene happens in the Warner Brothers cut, unfucked with, and the performance feels totally flat.
Right.
And is entirely about what scenes happen before and after.
And
not just in terms of, story details are missing, but even, as Elaine May would say, the ecology of the movie being different.
it really is that. It's like you're in Australia and you brought a frog and now all the frogs are multiplying and they're eating the, bamboo or whatever it is that happened. Right. Like, it's like they brought in these extra Kurt Russell scenes and everyone's like, well, everyone likes Kurt Russell. He's sexy. What the hell? How bad could this be? And then suddenly it's like, oh my God, like all the levels are off and they can't get him back in line.
What's weird is it's not just extra Kurt Russell scenes. It's also like the score is different.
Yes. Well, right. Yeah. The score is very annoying.
Really
in the,
fucking
Goldie
stupid.
cut. Yeah. Really annoying. Like one of those classic, like, I get it. Like,
totally
you didn't
overbearing.
have to, right. Yeah. You didn't have to.
And like when it's a comedy, the score is like too chipper. When it's a romance, the score is like too swooning. When there's tension, it becomes a fucking like Z-grade Bernard Herrmann score.
Yeah. Right.
There's the thing where there's the motor that's going to fall on the woman.
Yeah.
And in the regular version, there's no score, and it's just the tension of Goldie noticing it.
Right.
And in the Warner Brothers cut, they literally play like shitty Vertigo-esque music.
Right.
But also, they Tak Fujimoto, regular collaborator of DEMME, gets fired for the reshoots because they thought he was making Goldie look too old.
Huh. Sure.
So there's like the 30 minutes of scenes added, and sometimes even the little pieces in scene, you can tell the difference because she is so much more brightly and gauzily lit. The scenes are more flat. But the other thing is, in the DEMME version, Fujimoto, it's like so much Steadicam.
Yeah. Which is, and then there's also these wipe montages.
He does weird wipes that he hasn't done since Caged Heat.
I know.
Where they're weird like triangle wipes and things. But it is like, it's this very fluid this very fluid movie of camera movements guiding you through a larger space and being able to observe the behavior of all these different people. And in the Warner Brothers cut, even in the first half of the movie, where there is not a lot changed on a story level, those are cut down. And it feels like Goldie Hawn doesn't want this much of the movie where she is not at the center of the frame.
Yeah. Well, you're right. I don't know. I'd love someone she's never talked about it, right?
Never.
No.
I feel like she talked about it at the time and she said like, look, this is an ego thing.
She was very much like, I was trying to rescue a movie.
Yeah. She was like, the film he screamed was a mess. I was trying to save it in whatever way I could. I didn't succeed, but no one could have fixed this thing.
Right. She was sort of doing what I'm talking about, the Al Dulani, the Justice League, right? It's like, look, it's the best I could.
We had to lose
I hammered it into a shape.
Amputate.
Yeah. Right. Which is not what happened, as DEMME has said. He's basically like, I presented them with a complete movie that was good, and they made me shoot more scenes that were bad. And then I cut them in and it was worse. Or they cut them,
He contractually had to shoot them.
Yes.
Or else lose his status as director of the film. They made him fire his screenwriter. He knew that new editors were going to come on.
Yeah, he says I had to cooperate them. I had to shoot them because of the contract.
And he talked about, and this
I was trying to protect the movie in a way.
This is a lot of Demme being a mensch. But he talked about it was such a terrible thing to do. And it's not just about the ego of look at my vision. It's about they were erasing the work that everyone trusted me with. Actors are giving me performances and cinematographers are giving me images and people are writing a score for me. And I'm telling them that I'm going to protect it and keep it intact. And all these things are getting fucked with or replaced entirely.
Right. I just remember finding myself sitting in the bathtub at 6:30 in the morning just crying is one thing he's saying when he's talking about all of the things you're talking about.
And he said, yeah, they hired someone to write the reshoot scenes. It was a writer he does not name who eventually got hired, who did it because he was trying to get Warner Brothers to greenlight another script he had written, so he thought they would put him in good graces.
Right.
And he delivered the pages, and they thought they were bad, so then they had someone else rewrite them, and they shot him over 4 days, and he was there, and he was like, look, I have not my DP, some other guy they
Bill
hired.
Fraker, who he likes.
Yeah, but is now mostly hired to try to make all the actors look younger and prettier.
Yes.
Because the original version had too much grit.
What? Okay.
And the actors, Goldie is primarily concerned with coming off like classic Goldie. Right. And so he was like, I would just sit there and I would go to the cinematographer and say, so what do you want to do? And they'd show me when they were done and I would go, okay. And I would go, Goldie, what do you want to do? And she would tell me and I would go, okay. And I was just sitting there and babysitting.
Yeah.
And it just sounds like this fucking miserable experience. They look at it. The new stuff doesn't work. He's like, I will happily take 2 of these minutes. There are 2 of the 30 minutes we shot that I think I could use. And they went, fuck you. And at that point, he was essentially off the movie and it was out of his hands.
Yeah. They trashed the score. At that point, right. He's like, look, I'm going to go stop making sense.
Right. Which you realized was kind of the movie that saved him.
Saved his very much so. And also is a movie where he's like, can we celebrate pure creativity?
Right.
And can I do it in a way that's full collaboration, not just with David Byrne, but with everyone on stage and really highlight the work of everyone on stage.
And they says from 84 on, I made a rule that I wasn't going to make a movie that wasn't fun. I wasn't going to work with people
that I don't like.
Yeah.
Let me find it.
And Something Wild feels like such a celebration of like, I'm going to have fucking fun.
I would hope to continue making movies, but only with people I like. So that's my new rule since 1984. I wonder if he's never had a legendarily bad experience making a movie again, obviously. Like,
those 2 interviews,
there's another situation like this.
Those 2 interviews are done before Truth About Charlie.
Yeah.
So who knows? I don't know how he felt about that film.
I don't think he felt bad about that movie. I think America felt bad about that movie. But I don't think he was like, this is a mess, I'm sorry. Like,
sure.
I think he made the movie he wanted to make.
Yeah.
I think after this, he's basically, I can't actually say on mic, but there's one movie I heard about that he did not love making.
Interesting.
I'll tell you off mic.
Okay.
I shouldn't even, I'll tell you off mic.
Here's what, for me, the Demme cut of the movie is about. Okay. And it takes a little while to crystallize, but when you realize what it's sort of saying and what it's interested in, it feels very cogent. And cohesive, right? This weird fucking period in American history, as you said, where like suddenly 80% of our males disappeared. And society is now like actual children, old men.
Sure.
People who are sick.
Yeah, people who are like were 4F and probably had like a chip on their shoulder about it, right? Like, they couldn't go serve.
So they're men who feel somewhat emasculated.
100%.
People with money and status able to sort of circumvent the system at a certain level.
Although I think in World War II
not that much.
Yeah, because it was cowardice. Like it's not like Vietnam where it was a little more like, look, no one wants to go over there.
That's a small group, and they are mostly the proud cowards. They are proud to be cowards, right? And then you have sort of like fucking political radicals, like, Kurt Russell jokes that he's a communist and that's why he's not in the war.
Right. He says he's a Japanese spy.
Yes. But in the whatchamacallit, in the longer version, he goes on a longer run.
He makes a bunch of jokes. Clearly in that way of like, he doesn't really want to talk about it. So he has like a bunch of funny lines.
Totally. Right. But it's mostly, yes, men who feel emasculated by the fact that they're not physically fit enough to join the war, and old men.
Yeah.
And so in this weird period, women were asked to step up and join the workforce and replace their husbands in their jobs, especially, building planes and such, which is why Rosie the Riveter became like such a fucking iconic image. But it was this weird contradictory thing of the government saying, women, you need to join the workforce. Our country needs you. But the second they showed up to work, all the men went, fuck you. You don't belong here.
Sure.
Don't think we accept you.
Sure. That's what I love all that stuff.
Love all that
Charles
stuff.
Napier is sort of in this movie.
Love all that stuff.
The hostel.
Right. And Goldie Hawn and her husband, Ed Harris, are two fairly boring, waspy, conservative people.
Sure.
They live in a little cul-de-sac. They have a quiet life. She doesn't seem to have that much of a personality because it feels like she's never had the chance to figure out who she was.
100%.
Because she's was kind of told.
So many women of her generation.
You don't worry yourself about that.
Right,
you don't need to have an inner life.
And there's this person, her neighbor, who's always walking by in these fabulous outfits.
Ed Harris is always calling her
Harris
tramp.
is like, that tramp.
That fucking tramp.
And she's like, isn't she a singer? And he's like, singer my foot.
Yeah. Sings the tramp blues. They both end up at the same factory.
Yes.
Working the same line. Working the swing shift. And they sort of slowly, reluctantly become friends. Although Goldie makes the first overture because she doesn't understand the idea that this woman could be hurt because she doesn't think about someone having that much self-respect.
Sure, 100%. Yeah, she just tries to do this sort of like, hey, we're neighbors.
And she's like, do you think I'm mute?
Yeah, right.
Like, do you think I'm deaf, dumb, and blind? You call me a tramp every single day of my life. But the shift of the movie is, the titular swing shift is not just the hours they are working.
4 to 12. Swing shift.
Working 4 to 12.
I had a job.
You worked a
working
swing
that.
shift?
Yeah.
Really?
Overnight at FedEx, loading trucks.
You worked loading trucks at FedEx?
How was it?
It lasted 3 months.
It sounds like it'd be really tough.
It was the worst.
When was this?
Well, the problem was I would party before I went to work.
What an absolutely ridiculously bad idea.
You would party up until 4 p.m.?
3 a.m. And then I would show up, and I never really...
Well, you worked the opposite. You worked 4 a.m. to noon.
That's what I thought they were doing.
No, they're working 4 p.m. to midnight.
Cut it all out.
No, but I like this FedEx stuff.
Yeah,
so you were
triplet.
working the night shift. You're working the deep night.
I believe they call that the graveyard shift.
Yeah, the graveyard, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I was a graveyard man, and I got fired because I was sleeping in a truck. And the boxes were just piling up on the conveyor belt.
I will say, unfortunately, I think grounds for dismissal.
Yeah.
Wasn't doing his job because asleep.
Yes.
But was there just like a culture of like, I feel like the guys who work that job are just like salty dogs.
They're salt boys.
And like, it's a lot of chatter.
Yeah, smoking blunts.
Well, sure.
Cool stuff.
Speak on that.
Speak on that? Sure. Dutch Master? I am indeed.
Who are your blunts? Dutch Master.
Dutch Master, Philly, White Owl, Optimo.
Gotcha.
Actually, pretty surprised how many blunt brands I know.
Go back to the movie.
So they're on the swing shift.
Well,
and you're saying
me,
the swing is,
the swing
metaphorical.
is in the absence of a husband and society where now suddenly they are more involved.
Sure.
Goldie Hawn starts to figure out who she is as a person.
And they are a community in a way that like they haven't really been before.
Right. That Christine Lottie sort of swings her over to a different way of living where she actually experiments with who she could be for the first time.
Yes.
And Kurt Russell is but a part of that. He's this charming
The
sort
Goldie
of
cut is very much like, this is a movie about a girl who works a job, makes a couple friends, but in working that job has an affair with the hottest guy.
Yes.
And whereas the movie, the director's cut is much more right. He's very peripheral.
Because I think she was trying to make it like Wildcats, Like, wouldn't it be funny if Goldie Hawn ran a football team? Like, what's a place Goldie shouldn't be? You know?
Sure. Yeah.
And there is this little bit of triumph in terms of her becoming like the lead man, but it's not a fish out of water comedy.
Not at all.
And what works so well,
it's very collective.
Her performance, which I think is incredibly good.
It's good in the
DEMME cut.
It's good in the. It's better in the DEMME cut.
I think it's incredibly good.
I don't know if
I do. I was watching it and I was like, this is so interesting. I've never seen her do anything like this before.
But that also might be a symptom of our flip. That I was so against her performance in the.
I think so.
Goldie cut.
Because in the theatrical cut, it's a nightmare. It makes zero sense as a character, and it feels very forced. What I found interesting in the DEMME cut was she's playing someone kind of devoid of the natural light and charisma that Goldie Hawn has. And there's the scene where Kurt Russell asks her about herself, and she starts talking about Jack, her husband, and their life. He said, I didn't ask about Jack, I asked about you. And she goes, well, I'm not interesting. I don't have anything going on.
Right.
And it's like she's a person who her entire life is defined by the relationship she has with her husband. And in the absence of her husband, she doesn't know who she is.
Yes. Her husband's boring, too. He's fine.
He's fine. He's fine. He's a basic bitch.
Yeah, he's a bit of a basic bitch.
He's a bit of a basic bitch. But it's this weird shift in society in which women figure out who they are for the first time. This one finds out who she is for the first time. Has a friend for the first time.
Sure.
Autonomy for the first time.
All of
making
that.
money.
All of that.
Yeah.
But then this weird thing of course, then the war ends and the men come back and they're expected to go back home.
Scram.
Yep. It's not just expected. They were obliged. They were contractually obliged to give up their jobs when the war was over.
Don't let the door hit you on the way out. You helped us keep the economy alive. You helped us keep our boys up in the air.
Yeah.
But also, we're never going to give you any credit for it. And now
That's-
go back to working in the
That
kitchen.
scene, which I believe is in both cuts, of where the planes are flying over, I think they come at different times.
And she said,
in
I
each
made
cut.
that.
And we made that.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's great.
Great. Just what we want. Just what we want you to do is make a noise. Why are you banging?
I'm so frustrated, David. I'm frustrated.
Why are you frustrated?
My shirt tails are too long.
They're always hanging out.
They're hanging out,
You're
tripping over them.
famously always wearing your shirt tails
I'm
out.
always wearing my finest shirts, but I like them untucked, and then I'm tripping over the tails. They're getting caught up in my shoelaces because I'm a short man with short legs.
Griffin, did you know the holidays are almost here?
Yeah, thanks for rubbing it in. I'm going to look like a fool.
Well, I'm going to give you a great gift.
What?
A stylish shirt that fits just right.
What? You're giving that to me?
Unlike most brands, Untucked shirts are designed to be worn untucked.
What if I have a weird body, though? What if I got a really short torso?
Untucked shirts always fall at just the right length.
Really?
No matter what the size. So you look casual and sharp.
Those are the two things I want the most in the world.
As you're saying, you see an untucked button down, it looks bad. They weren't meant to be worn that way. They're meant to be tucked in. But at Untuck It, the original button-down shirt is designed to be worn untucked.
But David, I don't trust you. You have no personal experience here, and I'm looking at you, and you're sitting here wearing one of your fancy tucked-in shirts.
I'm wearing it right now. I'm wearing Untuck It.
What?
As we speak.
That's an Untuck It?
It is.
What? It looks just like a normal shirt.
Untuck It. Looks great on tall guys, short guys, slim and athletic guys.
I'm one of those.
They have 50 plus.
And only one of those.
50 plus fit combinations.
Mm-hmm.
Fits my frame just fine, and I got a weird frame.
That's true.
I'm long, but shoulders not so broad. Arms really long. It's all over the place.
I'm realizing you should describe your body more often.
It's weird.
Yeah.
It's the shoulders. I don't have big enough shoulders.
You do have thin shoulders.
All right.
Narrow?
All right.
What's the correct term?
I guess. Not unbroad. It's always been a problem.
You have esoteric shoulders.
I'm length. I'm all length. Arms and
very tall man.
torso. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm a tall one. So at Untuck it was easy.
What?
I went to the website, picked some nice stuff.
I
came
was
in
so
the mail.
ready for this to be difficult.
It fit
I
me
thought,
great.
oh, the shirt will fit me great, but the trials and tribulations, the gauntlets I will have to run through in order to get them. You're telling me it's easy?
It's easy, and also they have 80 brick and mortar stores. You can go check those out if you want to try things on. They've got wrinkle-free button downs. They got super soft flannels. They got outerwear. They don't got. It's great.
That sounds incredible.
They even have a whole page devoted on their website to helping you find your fit.
Well, David, I'm just going to run to a computer right now and place an order and pay full price.
Okay, well, wait a second.
What?
Hold on.
What?
If you visit untuckit.com and use code CHECK,
Okay.
you'll get 20% off at checkout. That's UNTUCKIT.com. Promo code CHECK for 20% off.
No, but this doesn't sound like a good deal because if it's 20% off, the shirt will be too short. Why would I want to lower
No,
the
it's
length?
20% off the price.
The
not
price?
the material. All right.
Well, BRB, I'm going to order some Untuck It.
Good job.
The difference
This is what fascinates me. Anyway, yes, the difference is.
The Lottie version ends with her back together with Jack. Or the
Goldie cut. Call it the Goldie cut.
No, I'm sorry. The Warner Brothers cut is what I mean.
Yeah, the Goldie cut.
I'm getting all confused. The DEMME cut.
There's a DEMME cut and a Goldie cut.
No, I know which ones are which. I forgot which one I was saying. Cancel the episode.
Okay. The DEMME cut ends with her and Lottie on the beach.
I know what this was.
And it's a beautiful, beautiful final shot. It is. What are you freaking out about?
I'm not freaking out. I fucked up, and then you got to leapfrog the thing I was going to say.
Yes, I completed your thought because you were clearly.
But I didn't middle it. I had a middle.
So wait, what? Because that wasn't in. I watched the Warner Brothers cut.
I mean the
it ends on a freeze frame of them hugging.
She's like kissing the dog, and then she walks up and she's like, "I'm sorry," and then the last line is, "We really showed him."
I mean, it is very much like me finishing a college essay where I'm like, in conclusion, it's a land of contrasts. Right?
Well, so in the DEMME cut, Christine Lottie has a weird on-again, off-again relationship with Fred Ward playing a character named Biscuits.
Biscuits, yeah, of course. Right. We stand a legend.
Cool guy. Cool name, cool guy.
Yeah, exactly.
No, he's actually not a cool guy. But
no, he's like a dummy with a temper who runs a nightclub.
Yes.
Right.
And wants to be a big shot.
I mean, a classic like Fred Ward totally. Well cast, yes.
Excellent Ward. In the DEMME cut, he hits her.
Yeah, he slaps her. She slaps him back. He slaps her again or whatever. Or maybe she slaps him. They have a little sort of exchange of blows.
But it is a little bit harrowing.
Oh, it's no good.
And it makes you realize she should be away from this guy.
Right.
She needs to figure out what the fuck she's doing with her life, which is probably one of the only reasons that she's even opens herself up eventually to Goldie in the first place, is because she realizes she needs to shift. That was the main club she used to perform at. Yes. She can't perform there anymore.
I mean,
she
their
doesn't
fight
want to
is
see him anymore.
Him being like, now that there's a war on, I can make so much money from this club.
Am I wrong in thinking that the Goldie Hut removes the hits and just makes him like, oh, he's sleeping with other women?
He kind of knocks her down off of a bike.
Sure.
That comes later, but here, you know what? I'm going to queue up the fucking cut right now. I'm going to check it.
Okay.
But there is, I don't recall, I watched this morning, I don't believe that other than that you see his character
because there's like a moment of startling violence and
it
feels like the Warner Brothers cut kind of sands him down a little bit because there's something to the fact that when he like shows up again at the ball and he's in uniform and he's about to ship out the next day and his friends are calling him by a different name and he actually seems like apologetic, like he's tried to remake himself.
Right.
That you really don't know whether or not to trust this guy.
Right.
And in the Warner Brothers cut, it's sort of arguing like, he's cute.
Yeah, he kind of just comes back and is like, hey, I fixed myself up. Please forgive me. The end.
Well, the thing I find kind of bittersweet, and it feels like in terms of the ecology not being fucked up, is coherent in the DEMME version is it feels kind of sad that Goldie stays with Jack. Sure. And that Lottie ends up married to Biscuits. Yeah. Because both of them feel like men who are limiting in them in many ways.
All of what we're talking about out. Yeah, the slaps are gone.
Right.
They have a fight at the table. They have the fight at the bar table. And then it cuts straight to Goldie in the theater looking at a newsreel.
Right. It's so stupid. They both end up in these relationships that you feel kind of shitty about. It feels like a depressing ending.
Sure.
All the women are in the kitchen showing off their new, model dishwashers and everything. And then right after the wedding, Lottie and Goldie Hawn escape and go to the beach and sit on the beach and drink beers together.
Yes.
And the whole point is this is a rom-com about the two of them. It's a love story about friendship. Yeah. It's two women that never had friends before.
And how their lives were upended. But, the post-war era, America was not like... Yeah, it turns out we love women's liberation and women should have jobs and, we're just going to totally upend the social
There was active resentment of like the husbands coming home and being like, I can't believe you've been working.
Well, and beyond that, it's just the 50s are such a clear reactionary phase. Like, it's beyond just like, back to normal, back to normal.
Right.
It's more like we must reassert that it's like, yes, the family unit is important. This is America. We are the beacon of civilization and like
who would have known those ideals to this very day are still very much a problem on our society.
Oh yeah, everything's terrible. Everyone's the worst. But
that's almost like a thing now for blankies, like for like bingo or whatever. Yeah, sure. Like anytime Griffin referenced that everything is bad, the world's terrible.
It's one of the worst. Yes.
there is this weird sort of bittersweet ending, which is like they're still trapped by society. They're still going to be trapped in these shitty relationships in many ways. But the thing they get to carry with them going forward is their relationship. That these two women have each other, which they didn't have before. They both felt isolated in different ways. You're absolutely
right. Yes. But there's also...
And that's very poignant.
In the director's cut, in Demme's cut, there is the scenes with Ed Harris after he returns. There's this scene where they walk on the beach together.
Yes.
And they have more of a genuine reckoning about how they've changed. And she says, there's another guy. All of this is gone from the from the Goldie cut, which is why that's sort of that Ed then suddenly flips and realizes everything. It just feels a little quick and a little easy.
In the Demme version, car pulls up. Ed Harris gets out. He knocks on the door. She doesn't respond. He immediately starts to seem pissed off.
Right.
He starts banging on the door more and more aggressively. He's super suspicious. He walks up into Lottie's home. And Goldie, Hawn, and Kurt Russell come out of the back like dancing together.
Yeah. That shot is in both cuts, of them all dancing together.
Right. In the Warner Brothers version, he like walks up to the door holding roses like a big dope. And when she's not there, he's like, okay, well, on to the next door.
Well, I guess I'll check next door. Right.
Yeah, he comes off as like totally oblivious.
Right.
And then when he sees them, they weirdly throw in like one extra shot where he like throws a glance back to Kurt Russell and tries to figure out what's going on.
But then they also have that scene where like he's going through her clothes.
Right.
And she's got the lead man
jersey.
Like,
who's this lead man? She's like, what do you believe? It's me?
I'm the lead man. And he's like, okay, where's my stuff? Right.
And she goes, it's like, here, oh, God, I got all these airplane parts here. It's somewhere under here. Why does she have fucking airplane?
She wouldn't have airplane parts.
This is clearly like someone rewriting this with like 3 hours to go, right? Airplane parts in the closet.
You don't see any airplane parts. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
There's
You're
this
right.
beautiful thing of like they flip every balance of terms of when he's suspicious and when he's oblivious in the two versions, right? So then he comes over and Goldie Hawn is like as quickly as possible trying to fix everything in the house to make it look like she hasn't been having fun on her own.
Right.
It's less even the evidence of a man and more just like the evidence of like a life being lived.
Yes. And that is what they talk about on the beach and things like that. Right.
And he's like, what's going on? And then when they're on the beach and they're talking about stuff, she makes a bunch of comments. He calls Christine Lottie a tramp a bunch of times.
And she's like, you can't call her that. You're not allowed.
And Ed Harris says, she's like, brainwashed you. You've changed. You're different now. She's gotten to you somehow.
And she's like, I am different now.
And that's when she like turns her back on him and says like there's another man.
But he
was never going to suspect. He is so blindly trusting.
Because they sort of present him as Lottie's guy. Like, you know, that's their trick. Right?
Yes. Yeah. Right.
And to be clear, in the studio cut, she does have an affair. She has sexy sex with Mr. Kurt Russell.
But she cries. Like when they're having sex, she cries. And it's seemingly because of the intimacy.
Sure. There's a scene where he's behind her and he's grabbing her boobs and she's very, you can tell, sort of like mixed up about it all. That's in the director's cut only.
Right.
There's nudity in
mixed up more about like she is so uncomfortable with her own sense of sexuality, not even the morality of the thing as much.
There is nudity in the director's cut, both in Goldie Hawn sleeping with Kurt Russell and Christine Lottie sleeping with Kurt Russell. That's cut out of the...
And Kurt Russell's tush?
Yeah.
Tight tush.
It's a little more of a sort of sordid shot. It's like rather than them under the covers, it's Russell is face down, butt up.
Totally exposed.
No covers.
And then she's got the covers up to her shoulders.
She's got the covers, but they sort of fall away. You know, like it's a little more natural in the Demme cut than in the director's cut.
But that's a big thing is like they're drunk, they go out together, they make it this clear thing that he's been hitting on her for months and months and months and months and months.
Time is an interesting thing in both. Like this is 5-ish years being covered, and they only sort of acknowledge it sometimes.
Which they in the Demme cut, she says, "You've been asking me out every day for the last 3 months."
Right. There's stuff like that.
In the Warner Brothers cut, I think she says 5 months, and it's literally just dubbed over. Like they want to make her seem a little more virtuous.
Oh, great.
They're so worried about like Goldie fans turning on her for having an affair. But that's the whole point of the movie is the murkiness of it, that she feels very guilty about it. It's not her being like fun and fancy free. But, the movie
was rated PG, to be clear, when it was released.
Crazy.
Whereas the director's cut probably would have been an R, I would have thought. Yes. Yeah.
Her guard comes down. They get intimate that night. He gives her the ride home. It's raining. She starts crying. She wakes up the next morning and like reaches for him and looks over, and then recognizes that it's not her husband's butt.
Right.
And it's this beautiful moment where it's like she for a second thinks she has woken up in her life from a year ago, then realizes this is a different man and has a complete existential panic about it.
But in the studio cut, Kurt puts on a bathrobe and makes her an omelet. I mean, to be fair, it's pretty sexy.
And
Kurt in a bathrobe.
And they have some like, I'm a man and you're a woman fight.
Yeah. Remember that all of that is not in it.
It's so weird.
Where she's like,
but
would
also,
you like the nightgown or the bathrobe? And he's like, I'd rather be drowned. I'd rather be wet. And he's, and then you cut to him in the bathrobe with the apron, making the cheese omelet.
And it's weird because it makes it seem like the affair is more of a conscious, deliberate decision on her part, but then she stands up for her own integrity.
They still have, because they still have these scenes that are from the other cut where she's like more conflicted and I'm married and this is wrong and I'm not sure what to do about myself.
And they keep having an affair. Yeah. There's the scene where they're giving the sort of tribute to Holly Hunter, who's so good in this and has so much more to do in the Demi version. And they sneak away to make out.
Where is Holly Hunter in her career? This is 3 years
pretty
before.
Much it. I mean,
Blood Simple.
She's a voice in Blood Simple and uncredited.
This is her second movie.
Yeah,
she's in The Burning.
Yeah,
in I think a small role. But yeah, so she's nobody. Because in '87, which is pretty much her next movie.
Yes,
is the Raising Arizona Broadcast News
which
year.
Is crazy.
Right. I should go home and watch Broadcast News right now.
Yeah, I probably will.
Do you want to just stay in here and do it?
Yeah, let's just do it. This is such a good room. It's got such great energy. It's hard to even remember all the little differences of how these things are presented.
It's very hard to remember all, but we have covered a lot of the main differences.
The other thing I was going to say is, so then when Jack comes home, Kurt Russell is very hurt. They have a number of conversations in the Demi version where he's like, why are you acting weird? And she's like, I'm married. And he's like, so? And she's like,
you gotta live your own life.
I'm married. What do you not understand? Like, this matters to me. I care about this. And he both sort of starts to back off a little bit and gets very personally hurt by it.
Right.
His sort of wounded ego of not being the number one guy. So then there's this scene that is so well acted where he kind of very knowingly asks Christine Lottie if she wants to come see him play in the club that night. And it's one of those scenes where, like, him saying that is pretty much him saying, do you want to fuck?
Right.
Like, you're alone now and I'm alone now. Do you want to fuck? And they both kind of go like, yeah, let's go to your show tonight.
Yeah.
And they go through the motions and they sleep together. And she wakes up the next morning and has Ben's holding up fingers. What do you have to say?
We're going to skip over Kurt Russell playing trumpet?
I was going to come back
to play the trumpet for this movie. And his trumpet teacher, I looked up because Joanna was instantly like, can he play the trumpet?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, let's find out.
It doesn't seem like he's really...
No, he's playing the trumpet.
Get out.
Yes, because I found a very long article that was by like some trumpet guy who's like, worst fake trumpeting in movies. Like, here we go. He was like, fuck this, fuck that. Like lots of, you could tell their mind.
Because I was doing it. I was definitely watching him on the valves and checking to see his lips were getting tighter, looser.
Because this movie is so not that big a deal. So buried in this article was him being like, now Kurt Russell in Swing Shift is actually doing it. And I found an interview with his trumpet teacher who said he was really good and worked on it for 3 months. So like,
wow.
It's like,
I'm impressed. Because man, not only is he very hot, but then getting him on some hot brass.
The man can blow.
Woo. Oh boy.
Anyway, as you say, yes, where he gets with Lottie, which is in both cuts.
Right, but there's something too in the Warner Brothers cut. It just cuts at one point, and they're waking up in bed the next morning.
Yes,
and the
like
Demi
she
cut,
sees him. Yeah. You see her come in, and he's playing like kind of sad jazz.
Yeah,
and then it's just like
all this is much longer in
the Demi cut has the lead up of them having like him inviting her, them going out together. The sense that they know what they're working towards.
About people who've been in love. You know what I mean? Remember, he has that whole monologue where he's introducing the song.
And then how does Goldie find out in the Demi cut? Because in the Warner Brothers cut, there's a weird thing where she takes a taxi to
I don't remember
Lucky's trailer.
Yeah.
And then sees them and then gets back in the cab or something.
I don't remember. I don't know.
So fucking sloppy. But then there's the scene that is largely the same in both versions, but in one version it means something. In the other version, it seems completely out of nowhere. Where
they fight.
Well, Lottie comes over to Goldie's house and she makes her tea and they're like sort of not talking about it.
Yeah.
And Lottie apologizes and is like, so what are we going to do about it?
And it's like, it's one thing. It'll never happen again.
We're just going to continue being friends. The three of us are just going to be friends.
Right.
And then they go out to the club and she like totally collapses and freaks out.
And Joanna, when she says that, she was like, so at that point, you're so baffled by the movie. She's like, is it going to be like a threesome? Like, is it going to be like a plural relationship? And I was like, no, I think she's in denial. And but like, it doesn't matter. At that point, that's when Kurt Russell's like, I'm going to go. Right.
But it makes sense when you're watching the Demi version because
100%.
You're like, this woman is so ill-equipped to deal with this that she optimistically thinks that she can just ignore it and move on.
And also, it's a movie about people leading their lives, whereas the studio cut is more about Goldie and Kurt's like crazy relationship, and then Kurt leaves the movie, and the movie just sort of keeps going for a while, and you're like, Jesus.
And Demi's whole point was like, the movie was about him being like a cad and a piece of shit, and he's kind of manipulating both of them.
Yeah, Demi says he's supposed to be a jerk.
It's about women learning autonomy and like falling in love with each other and, forming an important relationship. Mm-hmm. And it was turned into a movie that kind of negates all of the sort of feminist leanings of the film. That undercuts all of it because it has to be like, look at Goldie. She's a go-getter, huh?
It's baffling.
I'm trying to think of the other major differences.
We've covered all of the major differences.
Well, not all of them.
No. Well, not all the differences, but we have covered, I feel like, a lot of the major differences.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it is, it's every scene feels different, either because every scene is fucked with or the scenes surrounding that scene are so fucked with that the scenes don't have the same power.
It's the ecology.
Because that sort of fight scene, when I watch the original version, I'm like, that's Goldie's best acting I've ever seen.
Right.
And then when you watch the Warner Brothers version, you're like, this makes no fucking sense.
Yes.
And it is that weird thing of like, it does, this movie freaks you out a little bit. I've read that like I'm
going to read from the Sight and Sound plate. This is just about the fight scene.
Yeah.
Hawn is fantastic here. She looks dazzled by the pain of having lost, she thinks, her lover and her best friend in a single blow. That's what her reading of I was in love means.
Yeah.
That's the whole meaning. And the edit changes all the meaning of that scene and that line. Yes.
There is just a coherent, very specifically observed woman in the Demi version who's usually not the kind of woman that people make movies about. And in the Warner Brothers version, it is a Frankenstein character that makes no sense. And it's one of those weird things where it's like they're trying to make – I think they're fighting against the idea that like, oh, our audience is not going to like Goldie for cheating on her husband.
1,000%.
And the way they try to
you made a movie about a woman cheating on her husband.
I'm sorry, that's the premise. That's the script you picked.
Yeah.
But also, the way they try to counteract that is to sometimes make her more of an innocent and sometimes make her more sort of self-righteous in a way that makes no sense.
Yes.
She goes from being both like a total like, pushover to being like the rah-rah, like, well, listen to me. I live my life now. When in reality, it's someone who just kind of is living for the first time and is making mistakes and is confused and trying to figure out who she is.
I think, as the Sight and Sound article argues, that Russell is actually the actor who suffers the most between cuts.
He gets flattened out.
He gets completely everything. His performance is ruined.
Yeah.
Adding scenes where he is playing a different character fucks things up the most.
Totally.
Because Lottie, as we've said, basically shines brightest in both cuts anyway.
Yeah.
Like, obviously they're trying to fuck with that.
She has better scenes that are cut out, but her character's less fundamentally changed.
Yes. And Hawn, like everything you've said about Hawn is very interesting. Right. Yeah. I
was just going to say that watching this.
There's that final scene that only the studio cut has where Kurt's on the bus.
Oh, yeah.
Another thing they just kind of splice in the letters.
Harris letter is very different in the, right.
The Warner Brothers cut for his character, he feels like a manic or just like a pixie daddy.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes,
like it's that magical, you're not a real person type of like just representational kind of character more than anything else.
Here's some other things. Now I'm just reading this article. Okay. There's a montage of her fixing things in the house. Remember that? Like a toaster or percolator or whatever, which I think is them just being like, look how good she is at machines now.
Sure.
The scene where she cuts her hair is preceded by
yes, because in the original version, she takes the bath with the goggles on,
Yes.
and then gets up, looks in the mirror, and decides to cut her hair.
Yes.
And it's a sense of just her trying something different for the first time.
Right. Whereas
and in the theatrical version, they have a fucking voice
Announcement
over the
that's like, "Cut your
PA go
hair."
like, "Remember, all women must cut their hair," which doesn't explain the fact that the rest of the women in the movie don't cut their hair.
No, because they're wearing hairnets. They wouldn't
But
have
they're
to cut
also
their hair.
depriving her of autonomy. They're making her haircuts.
I don't know why they did that. I don't know why they did that.
And a mandated decision. There's shit like that that's nuts.
There's something, so Holly Hunter's character.
Yes.
There's this pivotal scene in both movies where she is excited to hear from her, I don't know if it's
She gets a letter a couple weeks late from her husband.
or sweetheart, whoever,
Yeah.
like her. I think it's her husband.
It's her husband.
And then immediately is told her husband is killed. It's an incredible moment in both where the guy delivering the news says he's never done it before and is clearly like can't handle her crying and hugging him. But then there's in the demi cut, there's this scene of her, Tobolowsky, kind of bragging about how her cute tear stained face was on the cover of Life, and like she's like smiling about it, but like it is a very ironic and sort of dark scene.
She's become a superstar, and that's
right. Her grief has become like promotional material for the war.
And then the camera pans across the catwalk where Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell are making out.
Right. It's like there's this cynical tone about the sort of patriotic manipulation of everything.
Yeah.
And that these friendships and these, transformations happened anyway. But at no point is the movie like, wasn't America great for giving these ladies shots? Like no point is the Debbie movie.
No.
Right. Yeah.
There's the scene where Lottie sees Fred Ward at the ball right before he's about to ship out.
Please call him Biscuits.
I'm sorry. He's Biscuits at the ball, the biscuit ball. And she's been dancing with a higher ranking man in the military.
Yes.
And he's sort of trying to butt in.
Yeah.
And, there's a disagreement in where the higher up who is now dancing with Biscuit's ex-girlfriend is told that he needs to refer to him as his superior.
Yes.
And in the original version, it is much more tense.
It
is a fucking fascinating, complicated scene with this guy who used to think that he was a big timer.
Right. And now he's like an endless sea in the Navy, and the guy is like, know
your fucking place.
Yeah, exactly.
Your woman's
Sir.
gone. Right. You've lost everything. And in the studio version, it's totally recut around it, and the performance takes they pick are goofy. And it just sort of becomes like a 2-line joke.
Right.
That like his status has changed. There's just like depth and meaning cut out of every moment, like just gutted from it, scooped out from the center. It does make you think though about like how rarely we discuss editing in this way, because people think about things in terms of like, oh, that scene's well edited, or like, oh, it's smart of them to add this thing in or cut this thing out. You're watching the same performances, just having the center like removed from them.
It's so strange.
You realize how much every performance is like either totally supported or destroyed by an editor.
One thing,
and sometimes actors will say that when they get nominated for an Oscar, and people think it's like, oh, it's like self-effacing, self-deprecating stuff, where they're like, I mean, I'm just like so grateful that the editor picked the right choices, because if they picked the wrong takes, I wouldn't be here today.
Right.
And it is a true thing where it's like the editor and the director have so much power. It's a thing that some actors find terrifying about working in film as opposed to theater. It's a thing that I find kind of exhilarating about how sort of piecemeal it is. Mm-hmm. But you really are giving someone else the power to totally like redefine your performance, because you can do things that will just never make it into the film, that are the difference between your character being coherent or not. And there are also tons of cases where an actor is terrible on set, and in the editing room, somehow they find a way to go, oh, if you use this and this and this, it looks like that's a thing. And you make a coherent performance as something that was not coherent on the day.
The swing shift story is a Hollywood tragedy. That's what Steve Weinberg says. Mm-hmm. He says it echoes what RKO did to Orson Welles' The Magnificent Ambersons, but the difference is that even the fucked up version of Ambersons, which is the only version that exists, is a masterpiece.
Yeah.
Whereas the fucked up version of Swing Shift is, like you say, it's like it's Frankenstein. It just, it can function in that weird Hollywood way that you're talking about. We're like, yeah, okay, you could sit down and watch that and come out and be like, well, I guess I just saw a not very good movie.
Sure.
That's how I felt.
And if no one ever told you it got fucked with, you'd just sort of be like, well, Yeah, they just, whatever. They weren't balancing the tones, right?
Which
they
Demi
just didn't
talks
figure
about.
it out.
That was the thing that hurt him the most, was he
Right.
felt like he had his breakthrough movie, and then he read these reviews that were like, Swing Shift's a mess. It's a shame. Demi really seemed like he was going to be the guy. And he was saying, like, reading it, like, attacking him personally.
Sure.
As, like, I guess we misread this guy's potential. And for him to have to sit back and not be able to comment on it and not say, this isn't my movie. You cannot like it. I don't like it either. But this is fundamentally not the movie I made in every regard. I think it kind of broke him, but out of that comes like the new, even purer sort of following his own whims, Demi.
Which is true of many a director we've covered.
Yes.
There's often that traumatic moment earlier in the career that sort of casts a shadow.
The chrysalis.
You know, like
reveals the butterfly.
Shyamalan on Wide Awake, which as we all know was about a tie-tie boy.
It's so tired. And James Cameron, I'm proud of too.
Right. There are many examples like that where directors suffer some kind of loss of control and codifies for them that they need to be in charge. But then Demi is no tyrant. I mean, that's the thing about him that's so special. Is like never. His reputation is always as the grand collaborator. Like,
Right.
So as some directors, I guess, like the Camerons of the world or as Shyamalans would be like, yeah, the lesson I've learned is that I'm in charge. I get final cut. Don't fuck with me.
Yeah.
And the lesson Demi learns is like, I should just work with my friends.
Yep. Ding dong.
Hey, who's that at the door?
I'll get it. Craig.
Hello. I'm sort of doing a Craig Ferguson thing now. Who's that at the door?
No, Craig Ferguson. You know, it's not the kind of thing I know.
I don't know who you are.
I'm Rocky Balboa.
Oh, sure.
You know, hey.
The boxer.
I'm a boxer. Yeah, Rocky Balboa.
The famed Philly legend.
I mean, I don't know about
And you
legend,
got an Italian restaurant these days, right? You got pictures on the wall.
I got a little
you
Italian
serve some
restaurant.
ziti or whatever.
Got a little Italian restaurant. Yeah, sure. You know, and
I feel like you should be mumblier. This is like Rocky 2 Rocky.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I don't sound like myself right now.
Anyway, what's up, Rocky?
Trying to find. Look, here's the problem. You know,
You're really trying to lean into it now.
I'm just trying to
It's
find.
really kind of like
Yeah, kind of like. I mean, look, here's
Adrian.
Hey, don't give me line ratings on my own life.
Sorry.
Okay, listen, look. Kid, here's the thing. I gotta practice for my next match.
Oh, and you know, I know how you like to practice.
I'm getting back in the ring.
Sure, of course, as you're wont to do.
And you know what I like to do?
You like to you do a lot of meat work.
I like to beat my meat.
Do you? I mean, I know you use the meat to punch and stuff.
Yeah, of course, you beat it.
Do you ever throw it on your back and maybe run around with it too?
Most definitely.
Sure. Okay. So you just, you're a meat guy.
Yeah, but look, I got
And
calcium.
also, you're a restaurateur.
Well, I'm both. Dual purpose. But, I got calcium deposits in my knees.
I hope it's not dual purpose. I hope you don't beat up the meat and then serve it to people.
Hey, I tenderize a Kobe.
All right, fine. Well, when it comes to meat, Rocky,
yeah.
quality matters.
I sound like Rocky.
But there's more to it than texture and taste, okay?
Yeah, I know.
High quality, humanely raised meat is important. If you want to live a moral life in this world, you want to have properly raised meat didn't have a sad existence.
Yeah, you don't want no meat live like Rocky Balboa, saddest
you don't want
man
like
in the world.
Rocky 5 meat. You want Rocky 4.
Look,
meat.
Rocky's very sad. He's only won 4 championships.
It's
He's
better
a
for
sad
you.
man.
It's better for the animal. It's better for the environment. You're staying away from industrial meat that's bad for the environment.
Yeah, we're talking no added hormones here.
No added hormones. That's right. They're never given antibiotics at Butcher Box.
NAE.
I'm talking about Butcher Box.
You talking about NAE? No antibiotics ever.
Or added hormones. Right.
Oh, yeah, either one.
They've got heritage breed pork with all vegetarian feed. They got pasture-raised beef.
Sounds like that can take a
100%
punch.
grass-fed,
Yeah,
grass-finished.
You could kick that stuff.
They got organic, free-range, non-GMO chicken. They got wild-caught Alaskan sockeye salmon.
Yeah.
I'm getting all this stuff, and guess what? It comes in a box. Right to your door.
My fists are getting hungry just hearing the descriptions.
Interesting. Okay, well, every box that they send, Butcher Box, has 9 to 11 pounds of meat, enough for 24 individual meals. It's all packed fresh, vacuum sealed, shipped frozen. You can customize your box. They have options, but you can also just customize and get exactly what you want. and it ships right to your doors.
Yeah, I don't know about this.
I threw in some like ground beef. I got some bacon in mine. A little extra bacon.
David,
you get chicken wings.
David,
maybe?
I don't know if you hear me. I said I don't know about this. Doesn't sound like it's maybe my kind of deal.
Why not?
I haven't heard anything about Black Friday sale. You know me, Rocky Balboa. I'm like Santa Claus. I love Black Friday.
Well, this Black Friday, your first box is going to come with ButcherBox's Ultimate Steak Sampler. That's 8 free steaks.
Whoa, what?
Just go to butcherbox.com/check or use promo code CHECK at checkout. You're going to get 2 filet mignon, 4 top sirloins, 2 New York strip steaks, plus $20 off your first box. Check. CHECK. I can't believe I have to spell check. This is ButcherBox's best deal of the year, and it won't last long, so don't wait. Go to butcherbox.com/check or use promo code CHECK at checkout. That's butcherbox.com/check. Promo code CHECK at checkout.
And I'm going to say one more time for good measure.
Uh-huh.
Can't wait to beat my meat.
God. It's interesting.
What a weird fucking thing. This
Play
movie
that box office game.
Okay.
Oh, this will be fun.
It will. It's good. It's a good box office game.
84.
April 13th, 1984.
Okay.
We've got the film Swing Shift opening with 2.2 million, I'm sorry. Number 9 at the box office. It is not a major player. It eventually topped out at let's see, what 6.6.
That is bad.
Oh, very good.
Oh. Okay.
So that's that.
Number 9. Naughty number 9.
Number 1 at the box office, at Hawn box office, is the 4th. I'm going to triple check this because it's
The 4th?
The 4th. Got Orko or Ortho or whatever his name is on the brain. I believe it's the 4th, yes, in a horror franchise.
Okay.
But it's got one of those confusing titles. Like it's not like, X4.
Sure.
It has a title that suggests something different. But it is the 4th in a very long running horror franchise.
Is it Friday the 13th, the final chapter?
Correct. Which where they were like, Friday the 13th. The gimmick is it's Friday the 13th. Here's a horror movie. And then Friday the 13th part 2, they were like, you love that one? Part 2, it's the same thing. And then 3D, right? That was their gimmick that time.
Right.
And 4, they were like, fuck, what do we do? Let's just say it's the last one.
Yeah, we milked this, right? There's no more juice left in Jason.
And then that meant that for 5, they could be like, Jason's back. They could be like,
no, because 5 is like the new beginning.
Yeah, new beginning. Jason's back.
No, but do you not know what the plot of 5 is?
Oh, right. It's 6
5 is
where
like a
Jason
copycat
lives.
crime.
Right.
5's a guy who wears a Jason suit.
No, it's Tommy or whatever. It's
Tommy Jarvis.
Yeah.
It's like
6 is the one
or
where
Roy Jason. I don't know. Whatever.
No, it's Tommy Jarvis. Number 6 is Jason Lives. Right. Yes, that's where Jason's back. That isn't that the one where they sort of explicitly start being like he's like a demon, right? Like where they're all in on like he has magical powers,
handicapped Satan.
I have been watching those movies because of the I discovered the Paul Rust, Matt Gorley, Voorhees.
I've not really watched
podcast, and it's been fun watching them.
Yeah,
but I haven't gotten to 4 yet.
Yeah, so I was more of a Freddy guy.
I was always more of a Michael Myers guy.
Interesting.
That was my
Freddy's
franchise.
my dude of the three big
bad
slashers.
on those. I'm bad on the Freddys.
Really? Freddy, I like no backwards.
I think I've seen 1, 2, and 3, and then maybe New Nightmare.
Oh, wow.
I'm a Hellraiser guy. Pinhead.
Well, I mean, nothing has ever made more sense than that.
It's true. All right. So that, opening, and it's just one of those classic things. No Freddy movie has ever made a ton of money. Mm-hmm. I mean, sorry, Jason movie. No Friday the 13th.
Sure.
I think the highest grossing, if you exclude like the remake, is the first one made like 30.
Uh-huh.
But they just would make them every fucking year for $2 million, and they'd always make like 20.
But that's the equivalent of like
100%. It was just like, yeah.
That's all the horror movies that come out today that make like 50 or 60.
But it was the establishment of that model, basically. It was just like, look, I don't know, fucking call Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Kill some teens.
Yeah, kill some
Make
teens.
sure it's out by October.
Yeah.
See you later. Because it was Paramount, but they were just like, I think it was like the junior dusty office.
Uh-huh.
And it would just be like, yeah, get out in the woods. I don't know, get a camera.
Just do it.
Wait, you need a camera now? Fine, get a camera. You need a camera to make a movie? So it opens to $11 million.
I mean, big opening.
And it made 32.
Yeah, wow.
Number 2 at the box office is one of the big comedies of the year. And it does start a franchise.
It starts a comedy franchise.
Does.
Ben's nodding.
It does.
Starts a franchise. How many are in the franchise? A lot?
Yeah.
At this point?
I think there's more.
Is it Police Academy?
Yeah.
The original Police Academy.
it's
How many
7?
are there?
7? Can I see if I can name them all?
Yeah, let me just cue them up, please. 1 second. Okay, name them all, please. There are 7.
Okay. Police Academy.
Well, good job. You got that one.
Oh, boy. Police Academy 2, their first assignment.
Correct.
Police Academy 3, back to basics.
Close.
Back to training.
Back in training.
Back in
Yes.
training.
Well, which really, geez. One assignment and they're back in training. Number 4.
Mission to Moscow.
No, that's number 7.
Fuck.
You're spiraling.
Is this Operation Miami Beach?
That's 5.
Okay.
Which I believe is Assignment Miami Beach.
Is this Citizens on Patrol?
4. Yes, that's right.
Okay.
5 is Assignment Miami Beach. What's 6? 6 is way more serious sounding than Assignment Miami Beach.
Yes. And 7's
6
Mission
sounds
to
like
Moscow.
an escalation.
7's Mission to Moscow.
5 is like, we assigned you Miami Beach. I don't know. Check it out.
6 is
6 is like, uh-oh. Oh, no.
9/11?
Police Academy 9. 11. No, it is Police Academy 6. City Under Siege.
Oh, of course.
What's
of
happening
course.
to the city?
I don't know.
It's under
That
siege.
does not sound like a comedy.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Anyway, but this is the first Police Academy.
Do you remember how one of the cast members, his whole thing is he just made sounds with his mouth?
Of course.
Oh, of course.
That's like the only thing anyone remembers about Police Academy, right?
Is that Sweet Chuck? Is that his character's
I
name?
don't fucking know.
What happened to that kind of comedy?
It was the 6th highest grossing movie of the year.
That's crazy.
You know?
No, just bring it back.
and it's made, look, it's been out for 4 weeks. It's made $37 million. It's going to make like 90. So it's
huge.
like,
It is kind of crazy.
this is the last sort of pre-VHS.
It is kind of crazy in that period of time. Someone can get up there and just do really good sound effects on stage at like the Improv for 10 minutes. And people were like, we should put him in movies. What does he play? A cop who's good at sound effects. Like you could have an act that was totally incompatible with narrative comedy. And they'd still figure out a reason why they could put you in a movie.
Number 3 at the box office.
Mhm.
A good movie from a director we could cover someday. I would call it an adventure.
Oh, an adventure. Is that the only thing you'd call it?
Sort of it's got some romance.
It's not Romancing the Stone.
It is romancing the stuff.
Well, okay.
Good movie.
Yeah, good
Douglas,
movie.
Turner, Zemeckis.
Let's do Zemeckis. It's just long.
It's fucking long.
It's
Like
fucking
how long?
22?
Oh, boy, it's long. Yeah, and I don't know where you cut.
I don't think you can cut. That's the
You
problem. I
can't
don't
really
think you can cut.
One day, right?
Because what? You want to cut and not do Morrowind? That's the problem.
Oh, we can't. We gotta do Morrowind. Are
We
you
must
kidding
be
me?
welcomed.
Yeah. Well,
And so what? You're not going to cut the early ones because those are the ones that everyone likes the most. His early run is great because It's I Want to Hold Your Hand, then Used Cars, then Romancing the Stone, then Back to the Future.
Yeah.
You're not going to start late.
No, not at all.
You're not going to get out early.
Honestly, the ones you combine are the fucking cartoons. That's what you do. Yeah,
What are the
Griff.
cartoons?
You know, like Polar Express, Christmas Carol, Beowulf, like where he keeps doing these 3D.
Yeah, I never heard of those movies.
I think all 3 grossed over $100 million.
I don't think Beowulf made it there. The other 2 definitely
Beowulf
did.
probably made 87, I'm guessing.
Well, now I'm going to have to find out.
to find
aren't I?
out. Okay.
Yeah, 82 domestic.
Can I guess the other ones? I think Polar Express is 170.
Well, just give me a second. Jesus Christ. Polar.
I don't know why I didn't just click on Zemeckis.
Well, because Box Office Mojo has changed its interface. I'm trying to deal with it.
They're clearly thrown off by the
187.
studio shift as well.
I always rooted for Grendel.
187? That's insane. And then Christmas Carol is 110.
It definitely snuck over 100. Let's find out. There's lots of them. It made 137.
Whoa.
But they were also expensive. That was sort of the hit on
They
them,
all
right?
Polar Express, I think, didn't lose money, especially because they kept re-releasing it. The other ones were so expensive. And he was about to do Yellow Submarine
Jesus.
with Peter Serafinowicz.
Gee, well, all right.
Was going to play John Lennon, I think. Or Paul McCartney. I forget which one he was going to play.
Anyway.
Weird idea.
Bad idea. I think.
Weird idea.
I think Zemeckis is kind of just has bad ideas these days.
Well,
he has ideas.
Tell that to Allied, a movie that rules.
You're a real ally. All right, number 4
The only real ally.
is another
Of Allied.
Yes, number 4. No, he's got his stands. You know, they'll never leave him.
Yeah.
Number 4 is an adventure film, a throwback, a real throwback.
A real throwback. What kind of star are we looking at here?
He is a star. He was a star.
Still alive or just no longer a star?
Still alive. Definitely no longer a star. Like a Euro kind of star, kind of like a Rutger Hauer type.
It's not Depardieu.
No. Think a little less classy than
Lambert
that.
Wilson?
You're thinking you are correct.
Oh, Christopher Lambert.
There you go. Thank you. Yeah, Christopher Lambert.
It's not Highlander.
Not Highlander. Highlander comes later.
Is it Tarzan? Greystoke? Legend of Tarzan?
Yes, Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan, Lord of the Apes. Long title.
Too long.
An Oscar-nominated film. Ralph Richardson, I believe.
And Rick Baker, I think.
Rick Baker. Sure.
Made those monkeys.
So just every 10 years or so, I think some studios just like, let's do a Tarzan.
We were talking about this. Tarzan, Peter Pan. Like, no, not 7 years can go by without someone being like, can we?
And it's not like there are people out there who are like, I'm a real Tarzan head.
Yeah.
I love Tarzan.
Yeah.
Like even like Godzilla or whatever, there are people who are like, I worship that series. I know all of its intricacies, right? No one's like, I love the lore of Tarzan.
Yeah, remember there was a live action Tarzan movie that grossed $120 million less than 5 years ago?
Yeah.
That no one talks about?
David Yates talks about it when he's talking to his financial planner. Number 5 is a comedy that I had on VHS and I watched all the time.
Getting a little more than that. I don't remember your VHS
big star
collection.
who's still very much in his comedy phase.
So now he's moved out. Is it a Hanks? Is it the Money Pit?
I'm shaking my head now.
Wagging their fingers.
But it is Hanks.
It is Hanks. And it's too early to be big.
That's right.
But it's not little.
No.
It's a big one. It's not Turner
One day
Hooch.
there would be a completely separate movie called A Bigger one of these.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I wanted to do that clue because it's funny.
Yeah, it's a funny clue. The movie's called Splash.
Yeah.
The film that saved Disney.
God, I've seen that movie a bunch.
The film that saved Disney.
Well, that's weird.
It's also the creation of Touchdown.
Is it? Yeah.
And do you know that Splash Mountain was originally supposed to be a splash ride?
Nope. Did not know that. That's crazy.
And instead, it's a ride based on, of course, Path of Least Resistance, Song of the South.
Right. Which is pretty much their only acknowledgement of Song of the South, right?
Yep.
Like, yeah. That, and I guess I did have a VHS when I was a kid of Zippity Doo-Dah.
It would be part of the sing-along compilations.
Right, but not, of course, no other. And even my parents, even when I was 5, were like, it's a tricky one. I was like, what Song of the South? And they were like, yeah, how do we, There's so much context to give you here.
For more, tune into, you must remember this.
That's right.
Season 5 or 6 or whatever.
Splash, Ron Howard film. Guy falls in love with a mermaid. Daryl Hannah.
Brian Grazer said he came up with the idea for that movie because he felt like he, quote, couldn't meet a nice girl in L.A. All these girls were trashy, so he dreamed that he could meet a mermaid.
Great. Have you seen Splash?
I saw it many times as a child. I probably have not seen it
in so many years.
Since 1996.
I think honestly same.
I used to watch on the Disney Channel.
It has so many people in it though.
Yeah,
Daryl Hannah,
Eugene Levy, John Candy,
Eugene Levy, right? And Richard Schiff shows up. Like all these people pop up.
Yeah.
I think Richard Schiff pop up.
We'll do Ron Howard.
Some other movies. We're not going to do Ron Howard.
Maybe he's in the bracket though. He might be.
We could put him in there.
He might be.
There's an argument for him.
There's an argument.
You got Moscow on the Hudson.
Ah, yes.
Classic in those. There's so many of those 80s comedies. It's like.
Didn't Yakov Smirnoff sue Robin Williams for that movie?
Should have.
Yeah.
In Soviet America, Yakov sues you.
What a country.
Number 7, Terms of Endearment. Which is obviously still running the table.
Right, from the previous year.
Yep. Just won an Oscar, though. You've got Swing Shift. You got Footloose.
Everybody gotta get
Cut Footloose. You got Where the Boys Are.
The not Barbara, Bette Midler movie?
No, you're thinking of For the Boys.
Yes. What's Where the Boys Are?
It appears to be a film about sexy ladies in bathing suits on the beach. I don't know. It's like a sex comedy.
It's called Where the Boys Are?
Yeah.
Note to self. Buy all remaining copies.
That's it.
Great.
That's the scene.
Well, perfect episode.
I think
thoughts.
it's a fascinating story. What happened in this movie? It was genuinely fun to watch both cuts, which I thought would be sort of a pain in the ass.
I agree. And I think
I'll do anything. It was a pain in the ass, and I watched those cuts probably like 6 months apart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I also think it's a fascinating story what happened to my brain being in this different studio, because I feel upside down.
I'm sorry, Griff.
No, it's not your fault. I'm not saying I don't mean it as any sort of slight.
No, I know. I'm just saying more as apologetic. I don't want to see you all turned upside down, inside out, mixed up.
Upside down.
I mean, now it's fun.
The
Though.
boy
it's
you
kinda
turned
fun.
me. Yeah, exactly.
Isn't it weird though? Like so much of just like we've been doing this for so long now. Coming up on 5 years.
True.
This podcast.
Right?
Yeah.
This podcast is going to kindergarten.
About to hit 250.
That's
Jesus.
crazy.
What should we do for 250? I don't know.
Do you remember my original idea for 200?
What was it?
Well, I don't want to restate it because maybe it's a surprise for 250.
Okay, fine.
I'll say it off mic.
That's fine. I'll tell you what movie Jonathan Demme didn't love making off mic.
That sounds like we should end this episode.
I think so. All right.
Okay,
See ya, folks.
Well, hey, come on.
That's just my classic sign off. See ya, folks. That I do all the time when I'm in this room, apparently.
It is weird, though, how much like it's like if you work in an office every day and then one day you go in and the desks are flipped, you know, and you're just like, my entire sense of where things are is so tied to the specific setup.
Hosley out. Just wanted to do my sign off that I do only in this room. But please continue with the outro of the episode.
Thank you all for listening. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe. Thanks to Andrew Gudo for our social media. They're high-fiving now?
Yeah!
Woo! Hey Montgomery for our theme song. Joe Bone and Pat Reynolds for artwork. Go to tpublic.com for some real nerdy shirts. Next week, tune in for Stop Making Sense with Demi Adidja Weebag.
Amazing episode, amazing movie.
Demi on Demi. Demi on Demi.
Demi squared.
D squared. I need to, I don't know. Either take a nap or have 5 more cups of coffee or run or lie down or something. And as always, my classic sign off. I'll hear you when I see you. And as always, Ponyo loves ham. And as always, Ponyo loves ham.